Hello, welcome to Math 20 video lecture series. In this video, we're going to talk about inverse functions. Inverse functions are important because we're going to use them in the future to define what a log function is. So before we give the definition of inverse functions, let us consider these two examples. We have f of x and g of x. F of x is 2x plus 1 and g of x is equal to 1 half x minus 2. So those are two linear functions. And let us observe what's gonna happen if we're going to get their composition. Let's compute for g circle f first. So this means g of f of x. It means in g, he replace x by f of x. So all the x will be replaced by 2x plus 1. Okay, so replace x by 2x plus 1. And then if you simplify this expression, we get x. Okay, you can verify that on your own. While f circle g of x is f of g of x. So in f, replace x by g or by this expression, we get this, and all the x's in here will be replaced by 1 half x minus 1 half. You have that expression, and when you simplify, you get another x. The composition of g circle f and f circle g are both equal to x. And two functions, f and g, are inverse functions of each other if f circle g of x is x and g circle f of x is x. But we have a restriction here that the x's that you plug in here must be defined using the function. Ano ba yan? Ayaw maano. Okay. Ayaw sumulat. So this x must be defined under g, or x must be in the domain of g kasi pinapasok mo muna si x kay g. And for the other one, x must be in the domain of f because x papasok muna kay f. So that is the definition of inverse function. So they are inverse of each other. If you get the composition, f circle g, and g circle f, you get x. And of course, kailangan mag-hold ito. And we have some remark. If the two functions are inverses, we use this notation. So g is equal to f, ayokong sabihin na raised to negative 1. Pero parang ganun na nga. Pero notasyon lang ito ha. Ang base talaga dito is f inverse. So meaning g is f inverse and f is g inverse. So pangalan lang ng function iyon. Okay? And another observation, so kung gagamitin natin yung notation sa note 1, so pag kinuha mo yung composition ng function tsaka ng inverse, you get x. So pinalitan lang ito ng f inverse, ito naman f inverse din to get this two. So ibig sabihin, in the previous examples, this f and g are inverse functions of each other. And f inverse is g and g inverse is f. So the question now is, does every function have an inverse function? The answer is no. Okay? So kailangan natin ng concept ng one-to-one functions muna bago masagot yung question na kailan magkakaroon ng inverse ang isang function. A function f is said to be one-to-one if for all a, b in your domain which are not equal, we have that f of a is not f of b. Meaning, if two x's in your domain are not equal, then their images must be different. Kung gusto mo one-to-one siya, that is the definition. So in other words, different elements of F have different images under F. So kung if you want to be more visual about it, let's say this is your domain and these are your images. Whenever you get two different values here, it will be mapped to different values of y. Or ang gusto niyang sabihin is that for each element in here, ang kapartner lang nun isang y. And ganun din yung pabalik. For each element dito sa mga y, you only have one x. Okay? Yan yung one-to-one function. So, itong g, itong nasa kabilang column natin, this is a function because for each x, namamap siya to exactly 1y. But this function is not one-to-one kasi you can get two different values of x which are mapped to exactly 1y. So, as ano yun? So, example, A3 and A4, they are mapped to the same y. That is why G is not one-to-one. And what I want you to observe is that whenever you have a one-to-one function, of course, yung forward from this red set to white set, it is a function. So, kapag one-to-one function siya, function din yung pabalik, yung from green to red. Okay? The inverse mapping is also a function. Yun yung sinasabi niya. One-to-one function, yung pa-forward function, yung pabalik, a function din siya. While if you have a function which is not one-to-one, the inverse mapping is not a function pag pinabalik mo yung map. Hindi siya function because as you can see in here, this particular element is mapped to two values, A3 and A4. Okay? So ngayon, masasagot na yung tanong natin, kailan mayroong inverse ng isang function. A function f has an inverse function if and only if f is a one-to-one function. Okay? So, pag one-to-one, doon lang mayroong inverse function. Please take note of that. And if you have f of a equal to b, parang pwede mo ilagay sa kabila yung f or pwede kang mag-apply ng, wag na lang ilagay sa kabila, baka ma-technical tayo. Okay? So, what you can do is apply f inverse on both sides. Of course, that is when f is 1-to-1, ha? So, if you apply f inverse on both sides, this is f inverse circle f of a, which is f inverse of b, or a is equal to f inverse of b. Kaya makukuha natin ito. So, ang effect niyan ay parang nare-reverse mo yung effect nung function. So, for example, this one, nag-apply ka ng f to a, you can reverse that, yung application mo ng f to a by applying f inverse on both sides. And if you have AB na nandun sa function mo, kasi sabi nga natin, ang function ay isang relation at ang relation ay set ng ordered pairs lang. So if you have an ordered pair in your F, yung F inverse mo will contain B, A. Babalik ta rin mo yung coordinates. So makukuha mo yung nasa F inverse. And the domain of F is the domain of F inverse is the range of F, and the range of F inverse is the domain of F. So para mas madaling makita, nag-drawing ako ng ganyan. Okay, so equal yung nilagyan ko ng arrows. Okay, so example, f of x equal to x squared plus 1. Does f have an inverse function? So, kailan lang ba may inverse function? It's precisely when your function is 1-to-1. Is this function 1-to-1? Ang kutob ko hindi. So, kung ang kutob nyo, ang function ay hindi 1-to-1, maghahanap ka ng two different x such that when you get their images, pareha lang. So, for example, we choose different x's na 1 and -1. And if you get their images under f, it's 2. So, kumbaga, in your function, you have 1 here, you have -1 here, and then 2. So, that is not a 1-to-1 function. It's a function, yes, but it is not 1-to-1. So, f has no inverse function. Okay, so, the question now is, if your function is 1-to-1, of course, it has an inverse function. How do you get the inverse function? So, for example, y equal to 2x plus 1, how do you get the inverse? So, madali lang yung method. So, the first step is to interchange the roles of x and y. So, you get this one, x equal to f of y. So, in this example, you interchange the roles of x and y. That's why you get x equal to 2y plus 1. And then after that, you solve for y in terms of x. So in this expression, we solve for y in terms of x. Let me do that here. So divide both sides by 2. So x minus 1 over 2. Okay? And then, kung ano yung makukuha nyo dito, that will be f inverse. Therefore, f inverse of x is x minus 1 all over 2. Or 1/2 x minus 1/2. So, madali lang siya. Yun lang yung pagkuha ng inverse function ng isang 1-to-1 function. Pero kailangan 1-to-1 yung function, ha? Let's try this one. G inverse. Find G inverse if g of x is cube root of x plus 1. So, this is a 1-to-1 function. So, paano raw yung method? Interchange the roles of x and y. So, magiging x is equal to g of y. Or x is cube root of y plus 1. And then you solve for y. Cube both sides. Therefore, g inverse of f, g ang gamit nating variable. G inverse of x is x minus 1 cube. Okay? So, yan. So, pareha lang naman. So, mas gusto ko yung ako yung nagsusulat kasi dahil maarte ako. So, let us find the range of this function. So, gagamitin natin yung idea ng 1-to-1 function. We know that the range of f is equal to the domain of f. Kasi domain of f inverse. Okay? Kasi wala naman talaga tayong method ng panghanap ng range in general. Okay? So, kaya ito, kapag nagpapahanap ng range ng function, makagamitan natin ng domain ng inverse kung 1-to-1 naman yung function. Okay, so let us compute for the inverse. So, solving for the inverse. So, x equal to f of y. So, x is y plus 1 over y minus 2. And then you solve for y. I think we can cross multiply. The denominator here is 1. X times y minus 2 is y plus 1. Xy minus 2x is y plus 1. And then isolate y. Factor y. Because we are solving for y. You get 2x plus 1 over x minus 1. So therefore, this thing, ano ba yan? So this thing is f inverse. So, complete na lang natin yung domain na f inverse. So, the denominator cannot equal to 0, but the denominator is 0 when x is 1. So you exclude that x from the domain. So the domain is the set of reals, you take away 1. So it is the set of reals except 1. Okay. So let us verify our answer using our slides. Okay. That is the inverse. Okay, you take away 1. Okay, for example, we have x squared plus 1. Does f have an inverse? So another way of doing it, kanina pinakita natin na this is not 1-to-1. Therefore, wala siyang inverse function. And another way of doing it is that you interchange the roles of x and y again. And you solve for y. Pag sinolve mo yung y, you get plus minus square root ng x minus 1. And the last equation does not represent a function. Kasi pag nagpasok ka ng x dito, you get two different values of y. So, navo-violate nyo yung definition ng function. So, ibig sabihin, yung pabalik, yung inverse mapping mo is not a function. So, wala tong inverse function. So, for example, when x is 5, you get y equal to plus minus 2. So, yung isang, or yung, tawag dito, yung isang x mo na mamap sa magkaibang y. So, yung 5 is map to positive 2 and negative 2. Therefore, etong nakuha natin is not a function. Wala siyang inverse function. Okay? So, ngayon naman, meron tayong test for one-to-oneness. Okay, paano natin na malalaman if a function is a one-to-one? Based on the graph. So, sa Math 20, based on the graph lang tayo. A function f is one-to-one if and only if any horizontal line intersects the graph of f in at post 1 point. We call this test the horizontal line test. So, this function is one-to-one. Kasi whenever you have a horizontal line, it intersects the graph in exactly 1 point. While this one, this is, let us check if it is one-to-one or not. Horizontal line, it intersects the graph twice. That is more than 1, meaning this function absolute value of x is not one-to-one. And the last one, oops, that's not a horizontal line. So what do you think? It's one-to-one. Okay, so let's try this problem again. F of x equal to x squared plus 1. Does f have an inverse function? We already know what the answer is. But let us use the horizontal line test. So the graph of that function is a parabola that opens upward whose vertex at 0, 1. The graph looks something like this. Okay, and if you apply horizontal line test, it intersects the graph more than 1. So meaning this is not a one-to-one function. If your function is not one-to-one, it doesn't have an inverse function. Okay? So let us now observe anong itsura ng function, ng one-to-one function and its inverse. So sabi natin, if AB is in your function f, then BA ay nandoon din dun sa function. And if we try to connect these 2 points and get the midpoint, we get this thing, itong binibilugan ko. And let us compute for the line passing through this midpoint and perpendicular to your line segment. So you want to compute that line. So using the formula for slope, we get that this is the slope. Or the slope is 1. The slope nito, at wait lang, highlight natin, let's be clear about it. The slope of this is, ito yung negative 1. So yung kinompute natin ito, that is the slope of this line segment. Okay? So the slope of this line perpendicular to your line segment is 1. Okay, doon nakuha yung 1. O tapos, ano na? So, gamit yung point slope form, you get y minus, gamitin natin yung point na to, y minus this is equal to the slope times x minus the x coordinate. Kayo na mag-simplify, makukuha nyo yung line na yun is y equal to x. So, ano sinasabi nito? Anong sinasabi nung nakuha natin? Etong AB, makakakuha ka ng point sa kabila BA, diba? Which is yung point mo dun sa F inverse, while this one will come from your F. Tapos, perpendicular iyon, same distance. So, sinasabi niya lang is that yung graph ng F mo ay mirror image ng F inverse about the line y equal to x. Or vice versa. Yung F inverse is yung mirror reflection ng graph ng F about y equal to x. So, pag nangolekta ka pa ng ibang points, parang ganyan yung itsura. Yung blue manggagaling kay F inverse, yung red manggagaling kay F. So, ganyan yung magiging itsura niya. So, kung alam mo na yung graph ng isa, nung F mo, makukuha mo yung graph ng inverse. Just reflect it about y equal to x. And the same goes for F. Kung alam mo yung graph ng F, pag nireflect mo siya about y equal to x, makukuha mo yung graph ng F inverse. So ito yun, the graph of F inverse is the reflection of the graph of F about the line with equation y equal to x. So more examples pa tayo. Ito yung kanina, para lang makita natin siya. No? So F is this red line, tas yung blue line yung F inverse. So this must be F inverse. And as you can see, they are symmetric about y equal to x. And another example, ito yung kinompute din natin kanina. This G and G inverse are symmetric about y equal to x. Okay, so if the function is not one-to-one, sabi natin kanina, it doesn't have an inverse function. But we can restrict its domain such that the function becomes one-to-one. And the resulting function, this is another function, bago na to, the restricted function has an inverse function. Because we force it to be one-to-one. So for example, this x squared plus 1, yan yung graph niya. Of course, f is not one-to-one if your domain is the set of real numbers. So pag kinuha mo lahat to, hindi siya one-to-one. Pero kapag kinuha mo yung isang portion lang, it becomes one-to-one. And in that case, if you want that portion, the highlighted portion, this one, then the domain must be from 0 to infinity only. The set of non-negative reals. Pwede rin naman yung kabila, no? One-to-one pa rin yung. Pwede mong i-restrict. You can also use this portion. As long as it is one-to-one. Okay. So, kapag nangyari yun, restrict natin siya. And para makuha yung inverse, pagpalitin lang ulit yung roles nung y tsaka ng x, we get this one. Of course, y is non-negative. Kasi itong y na to, originally, siya yung x mo. And yung x mo is 0 to infinity from the original function. Okay? And you compute for y, you get plus minus square root of x minus 1, where y is non-negative. So you have to choose one kasi function siya. Kung positive ba or negative. In this case, you choose yung positive kasi y is non-negative. Na-negative si y, square root is non-negative. So para ma-retain yung pagiging non-negative, you choose the positive side. Therefore, f inverse of x is square root of x minus 1. And if you graph this function, ano ang lalabas? Tada, yung blue graph. Okay? So, symmetric sila with respect to y equal to x. And as you can observe, what is the range of f inverse? That is the domain of f. What is the domain of f? 0 to infinity. And what is the domain of f inverse? That is the range of f, 1 to infinity. This is the range of f, which is the domain of f inverse. And of course, you can try these exercises on your own. And you can ask your discussion teacher about these exercises. So, ayun lamang. Good luck. Sana marami kayong natutunan in this video. Goodbye. Have a nice day.